Hi, everybody. Thank you for attending today's memoir writing webinar. Today we have Joan Ramirez with us. She's going to teach you guys a little bit about the memoir writing process, about storytelling, and just give you some other general writing tips. Joan, you can go ahead if you'd like.
Super. Uh, Good evening. I have slides that I'm going to give you, but I'm also going to give you a few other little tidbits. So please feel free to take notes in between. And if I'm going too fast, please let me know. I shouldn't though, because I teach children as well. No offense intended. And when I teach children, everything has to be very, very gentle because they are my babies and I want them to get the most. Devin, if we can go to the first slide.
Absolutely. There we go.
Okay. The main thing I have to offer, and I have published 5 books and I've published volumes of articles, is the main event in your life. This is going to be your roadmap. I have already outlined a short story that I want to submit to a historical publication because that's my focus now, historical writing. And you're going to say, oh, it's a short story. All you have to do is write it. No, 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 no. You have to outline the main events in your life. This is you. This is your memoir. And I salute all of you because you have served your country. And I applaud you just as I applauded my uncle. He was in the military in World War II. He's my old time hero. But it doesn't work that way when you're writing. You have to have a roadmap, just as you had a roadmap when you served your country. You had to know where you were going. You had to know what you were going to do when you got there. You had to know what your objectives were. It's no different with writing. We're going to use the 3 act structure. No, I'm not going to prep you to go on the stage, but you are in a sense performing. You are giving your reader the story of your life, and you want to put a lot into it. Where you started. I'll give you an example to get you started. In life, I always thought I wanted to go into business. So my first job was as an office manager. That was 1,000 years ago. I'm well preserved. Lo and behold, the towers came down. I'm a 9/11 survivor. And those foolish people laid me off. They laid off all of the um, writing division. And I was rather upset about that. And then my husband said, you love children. I went into teaching. I adore my children. I've been able to give back so much. It's been so rewarding. So, where you started, you know the expression, it's not where you start, it's how you finish. Well, you have to start somewhere. So, write down from the very beginning what you did initially when you got your first job. Think of how you felt. Think of your expectations. This is the beginning of your memoir. And do you want to put other people in it? Do you want to have a cast of characters? If there are people that have touched your life along the way and have helped you, have influenced you, have helped mold and shape you, yes. Otherwise, I would say no. The middle, you changed and you grew. I am on top of the moon with my children. Most of them are Asian. I have had them since their kindergarten. One of them came over to me a couple of weeks ago. She's in the 7th grade. She said, remember me, because we were all wearing masks, and we pulled down our masks, and I couldn't believe how she'd grown. She said, Mrs. R, you taught me how to write. Who in your life, along your career, especially when you decided to go into the military, who influenced you? Who helped you to make that decision? Did you make it on your own? Or did you have a role model? My role model has always been my uncle. He was, before I got married, my one and only. He was everything to me because he served in North Africa, he served in Italy, he was a medic, he was a pharmacist, he was a man for all seasons. He was there for me every step of the way through three of my 6 degrees. So he really influenced a lot of the decisions I made. Who did that for you? Was it someone you married? Was it someone you were dating? Was it your mother? Was it your father? Those are the people that you should focus on in your memoir. And I read an article recently that there are no villains in a memoir. Uh, there's good and bad in all of us. It's unfortunate that in some of us, the bad comes out sooner than the good. But if there is someone who had a negative comment to make to you that you were able to turn around into something positive, I have this a little bit later in the presentation, but I want you to be kind because there was someone who influenced my novel writing. And she wasn't always so subtle. She gave me tough love, which I often didn't like, but in the end, it helped me to publish 5 books. And I have 5 more lined up. So, can a villain help you? It's not like a villain in a murder mystery where you have to lock him up or lock her up. It can be someone who gave you tough love or told you something. In my case, someone told me something. It was 160 degrees, 360 degrees against what I believed that I should be doing. And I investigated. If it wasn't for that person, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. But villains have their place. In murder mysteries, we arrest them. If they're coming at us with a gun, we find cover. But if someone has done something and you feel that has had a positive effect in the long run, think about that person. If the person is deceased, that's one thing. But if the person is still living, just be kind. Right now, you're mature adults that have a wealth of memories and wisdom to share with the universe. You do. And I hope the universe will provide each of you with your own memoir that's published and highly read. In your memoir, you talk about your career, you talk about your travels, you talk about your family stories. When I say your career didn't begin when you went to kindergarten. I always knew in kindergarten that I wanted to be a movie star. Your travels didn't begin with when the family got in the car and took their first road trip. Your book starts now when you are an adult and you have made a significant contribution to society, which all of you have. And it starts with your career. It starts with your travels, the impressions, the people that you've met. My husband and I went to Dubai in 2019, and our tour guide I'm still in touch with. She's a magnificent human being. Her thoughts, my thoughts, blended thoughts, her wishes for me, my wishes for her to be safe. It's really who you meet along the way in life because nobody gets there by themselves. Truly. If I were to write my memoir tomorrow, which I won't because there's too many things that have been up and down. First thing I would do is I would thank my husband for all the wonderful historical research that he's lended to me because he was a history minor. Your family stories. There were so many people that my uncle came into contact with in his tours of duty. Unfortunately, I had to wait until he passed away to gather all the information because I kept asking, don't be like my uncle, write it now. I would ask him, can you tell me this? Can you tell me that? I read this in the notes that you took your memorabilia. No, I can't. I can't talk about it. There's a lot of painful things, but if you can get beyond the pain and you can talk about it, these are the kind of things that people are interested in reading. Yes, they want to read about you, but they want to read also about how other people's lives have touched yours and what impression they've made on you. So it's the emotional angle as well. You can go on, Devon, to the next slide. Capture memories. And if you're good with photography, I'm a published photographer. So one of my books does have some of my travel photos. If you aren't, then you have to resort to the photographs that are available to you online. However, I caution you, if you're going to use photographs that you have taken by yourself, you put your byline on. If you're going to use photographs that you have gotten from a tour of duty or wherever you serve, just be careful if you didn't take the picture to give credit to whoever and get permission. Start with an inciting incident to draw in the reader, something significant from your past that people can relate to and that touches an emotional chord. Make them feel what you did when significant events happened to you. That is the key. You want to make people feel. Many years ago, I read the memoir of the actor Stacy Keach. He really is incredible, a wonderful actor, very articulate. Certain things stood out to me. You want to give the facts because I'm also a journalist. I do that freelance, but you don't want to do the who, what, when, why, where, and how. You want to make people feel because when I read a book, I want to be able to empathize with the author. You want to make the people feel that you're right there. When I wrote the book about my uncle, there's a lot of battle scenes where I put him right on the scene. There's one where he's on the beaches in Italy. They're going, well, they're not, they're the landing boat is nearing the Italian shore, and the soldiers are young and their stomachs are rumbling, and my uncle is leading them and he's trying to set an example, and someone else is clutching their crucifix. Another person is clutching their Star of David. So it's the emotion, it's the reaction that you want, because everyone who reads your book should come away with not only, gee, this is this person's memoir, but this is a total human being who feels. Unfortunately, my uncle couldn't share those things with me. It was just too painful for him. He'd lost too many friends. So I had to draw upon his kindness, his tenderness, his empathy, the loving nature that he had. But you're here. You've seen, you've experienced. Make them feel what you did when significant events happened. And if it's too painful, discuss it with a loved one or have a conversation with yourself and see what you think that you're comfortable with talking about. Show your readers through vivid settings and descriptions. Be visual. When I teach children, they have no frame of reference. So I'm always bringing in pictures so they can look at it and they can experience what I'm talking about. Because it's kind of hard, the expression talk to the wall can't answer you. You can't have a blank screen. My husband says I'm much too emotional for my own good. Well, men don't cry. I beg to differ. But be visual. Describe the scenes. Because otherwise, people have no idea. They have no way of knowing no way whatsoever what you're talking about, especially in this country, especially now with the pandemic. People are terrified. I mean, I got on a plane that took a business trip a couple of weeks ago. It was for someone who's been flying since she's 9 and working overseas. It was just a little bit strange for me. So be visual, paint a picture. Next slide. Challenges. We've all suffered loss and endured unless we've lived in a cave our entire life. So tell of your learning experiences. Include conflict and how you resolved it. But as I said, be respectful. Surely there is no one on this webinar, me first and foremost, that hasn't had conflict, hasn't had someone who challenged them on their job. My uncle's conflict was the enemy. He just wanted to get out on that battlefield, patch up the soldiers so that they can go back out and fight the good fight. He had the enemy as a conflict. On September 11th, I ran with a lot of people, so I had my own conflict. I worried about my colleagues and I worried about surviving. But be respectful. No one needs to know how you sold your wild oats or the hate you harbored for a colleague whose neck you wanted to wring. You are here to inspire. You want younger readers to admire you. I read a memoir many years ago when I first started novel writing. And this person blasted, literally in print, everyone who had done something that upset him. And a lot of them were deceased. Serves no purpose. I have a mad doll that I gave my husband and we both use it. And when I get angry, I just shake it. I find it works very well. I'd rather do that than get angry at someone for something that happened. I'm sure my uncle had a lot of disputes with people. And also, if you do have experiences that are personal, those I think you should keep out if there's something that are of a physical nature other than defending yourself. Because that's not the kind of book that you're writing. You're writing something that 40, 50, 60, 100 years from now, someone can pick up and read and say, gee, Sue was really something else, or Jackie was something else. And they had their issues, but those issues are for them and them alone. What you want to do is you want to have someone admire you, and you want those reading to admire. And believe me, if there is a conflict and someone has done something that you feel negative about, they will know in your words that it was an uncomfortable situation for you. But you can never regret what you don't say in print. And that's a motto I've lived by all of my life, as a journalist and as a teacher. Next slide. The beginning. I was born on a stormy night. I don't think so. Unless you're a child protege in the arts or won the Pulitzer Prize as a teen, don't over dramatize. Be proud but honest about your accomplishments. Don't say that your work is Pulitzer Prize worthy. Don't say the bullets were flying in every direction and I was very lucky that they didn't pierce my body. Just start out gradually and build up to the danger that you face. This is the reason why I read few celebrity memoirs. They are gifted at their craft, but often tend to take too much literary license with their stories, which is why I like Stacy Keach's, because he was very humble in it. And I think that's the way we should all be. So don't start out with a lot of drama. Just start out maybe with something where your life was threatened in the military or even as a civilian, and then go from there. Next slide. The essentials. I'm going to pause for a minute to give you time for some mechanics to succeed in your memoir writing. Read your work out loud to make sure it flows and events are in the right order. I just finished editing for the 50th time my first in my historical suspense series. A very dear friend who's no longer with us said a long time ago, you can read something on the screen. You'll never catch all of your typos. You'll never catch all of your errors. Not only that, but when you read it out loud, you can hear the sound of the words. Is that what I meant to say? And if you're angry and you've had a bad day at work, don't read the book at all because you don't want the anger that you're feeling and you're entitled to it. There are days when a student says something to me, I've said something to them 10 times. I don't get it. So I go over it another 5 times. They're young. They are entitled. They're learning. But if you're working with a colleague, they're not entitled to ask you the same thing 10 times. You're entitled to get angry, but don't let that affect your writing. Take your manuscript and print the whole thing out. I know paper is expensive, and I'm not operating from a millionaire's budget. At one time, I was operating from a very lavish budget. But take and you can use recycled paper and print it out and hear how it sounds. I've caught things the 50th time, of course, I'm writing a novel. You don't need to read your memoir that many times. But I've caught things that I didn't catch the first, second, and third time because, and nothing is perfect, but you want to read it out loud if you feel uncomfortable. I'm used to that because I talk to myself a lot. I talk to my characters a lot. If you're uncomfortable, get a significant other, get a friend, get your child. Sometimes when I do children's books, I run things by the kids in the class. They get excited because it makes them feel that they're part of what I'm doing. But print it out and read it out. Also, make sure that your dialogue is authentic. People don't talk without contractions. I am going to do this because I have to do this now. I'm going to do this because I've got to do this now. So talk the way people talk, even in your writing. And in the military, I'm sure that there are words, there are expressions that you use that only you're only privy to. And you do want a lot of your colleagues to buy this book. So put them in by all means. Your characters. Your character is you. Start from the beginning and then show how your character grows. Her views, his views on how you feel about well before you went into your military service, how you feel now. It's a process that you have to build up. But be authentic. Check your facts, even though you were there. I'm Jewish. Some of my book deals with the Holocaust. I'm checking everything because I wasn't there almost 80 years ago. Be accurate. You don't want anyone to call you on anything. This is your book. You want to be proud of it. Next slide, please. Do not read your first draft for at least a month. This is my numero uno piece of advice, and it's something that I was guilty of. I used to write a book, write a story, and I'd put it away for a couple of days a week. And because I was a journalist and I had to get things done at a deadline, I once had to write a story on some napkins because I went to the scene and I had to get it in the next morning. It doesn't work that way with novels, with memoirs. You have to give it time. You have to give a steak time to marinate. You have to give a souffle time. Do that, please. It makes a world of difference. And then I wondered why, when I sent it off, I was rejected. Why? Because I didn't have the characters in the right mindset. I didn't even have the villain in the right mindset. I didn't have the ending written properly. I didn't phrase things properly. I had a lot of cliches, things that shouldn't be in there. You need time to let the facts marinate. Make sure you factor in deadlines if you are under contract. I hope that all of you, when you finish your memoir, you approach an agent, a publisher, and I hope that you all get contracts. I hope you make a fortune. But these things I'm telling you are very important. They're crucial. And if you are under deadline and someone says they want something and you've just finished it and you need time, there's no harm in saying, look, I want to send you my polished work. You wouldn't go into a jewelry store and buy a diamond in the rough. You'd want it polished, you'd want it set. It's no different with a book. A publisher or an agent will have more respect for you if they know that you want to take the time to get the book done and get it done properly. I would never give a lesson to my little munchkins and give them the homework assignment. And we're talking now, I'm doing high school and college again as well, unless I felt they had a full understanding. And this is your work. And you're not professional writers and you're not supposed to be. I edit people's work. And if they tell me, I need more time, okay, you need more time. It's important. Schedules were meant to be amended, but just don't do that to yourself. Do not rely on spell check. Read and mark errors to be corrected with a red pen. And I mean red like in blood. Don't rely on spell check. It's not infallible. Really. I have caught more things that I've circled in red that spell check didn't pick up. Don't be passive with verbs. This is the sign of an amateur writer. I was a shy child. Passive, it says nothing about you. I sat in the last row of the cafeteria and read my book. Voila. I'm picturing in my mind me, because when I was a kid, the kids used to call me a bookworm because I was always reading. And a lot of kids made fun of me. It's okay. At the time it wasn't, but it's okay because I love to read. And I read my book. I picture a little girl who either is too shy to speak to someone or she just wants to read. She just wants to have that time to go inside of a book, literally. But don't be passive. Don't say that. Be direct. I'm sitting here now, I'm talking to you. I could have said, Joan, I could have said, well, I'm sitting in the chair. No, I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you about memoir writing. Next slide. Writing resources. Strunk and White's Elements of Style is essential. All those rules that you need about capitalization, punctuation. It's my Bible. I don't move without it. I don't write a book without it. You can't know everything. This is not your profession. Please, you can get a used copy. It's wonderful and it's essential. Books on memoir writing, too numerous. And I would be very, very nervous about giving you something I recommended. You have to go online or go into the bookstore, Barnes and Noble. Type in memoir writing, books on memoir writing. Check the table of contents. Read a sample chapter to make sure that your particular area is covered. If your area isn't covered, for heaven's sakes, don't buy the book. Buy one or two of them. Make sure that they cover your genre. Genre meaning memoir, mystery, suspense, biography. Last but not least, find a competent editor. Please do not send your manuscript to an agent, publisher, or even think of self publishing until your book is edited by a professional. There are tons of resources for this online as well. My editor, I don't move without her. She's marvelous. She's specific to my field, historical suspense. Select editors who meet your writing style and budget comfort. And feel free when you do contact them to ask them how they work, to ask them what their budget is, to ask them if you can pay in installments, to ask them if they're in your state, how they feel about deadlines. Are they tight? Are they loose? But do get an editor, because once you publish your memoir, you're going to want to republish it again. You're going to want to take segments out of it, and you're going to want to put them into this organization's publication. You want to put them at a million places. Maybe you want to present. And the way you write it initially is going to help you. It'll make life easier in the long run. I'm telling you everything that I've experienced. I wouldn't tell you something that I didn't go through myself, because that would not be fair of me. And we are going to leave time for questions. Next slide. The middle. This is where you're going to fill in who should be mentioned, what events should be included, the middle of your memoir. When these events occurred in your life where you made significant life changes, that's why you need an outline. Dates of when things happened. If I didn't have an outline, I couldn't have written the book on my uncle, because that was in the 1940s. Why should the reader care? You're going to pour tons of emotion and as many challenges as you can into your memoir to keep the reader turning the pages. You want the reader to turn the pages. You don't want them to stop at page 50 and say, oh, she's repeating the same thing over and over again. That's another thing. Check for repetition. Check for cliches. Next. Now, guidance. At this point in your memoir, bring the reader into the present with what you're doing now. That is a reflection of all you've accomplished. Show the big lesson and hint at what's to come. I don't know where you are in your careers, but if you're retiring, you're thinking of going into another business, you're moving up another step, you're thinking of going to another base, whatever it is you're thinking of doing. This is the place to give inspiration to others whom you would like to encourage. So always put something in there that you've learned, because it's a memoir and people are going to look at it. Eleanor Roosevelt is my hero. She's my all-time hero. The things that she did with her husband, a lot of the things she did surpassed her husband. She was really quite something in World War II. She had lessons to offer. I've given you the canvas and the paintbrush. Now use your strokes to tell your story in the most visual way you can. In fact, I'm available for private sessions for a modest fee to guide you on your memoir journey. I don't do extensive memoir editing because that is not my genre, but I will help you to get started on your road to memoir writing success. Now, I said I would leave time for questions. Does anyone have a question that they would like to ask me? I'm here.
I do have one. In terms of journalism, if you are writing a memoir about somebody else, is there anything that you would suggest for that?
If the person is still living, by all means, try and interview them. If they're deceased, contact a family member. but also contact their estate. And don't put anything into print, send it to a publisher, an agent, until you've gotten copyright permission. That includes not only facts, but photos as well, because you don't want to be sued before you've even gotten out of the starting gate. And most of the times, people will be very flattered that you're going to write a memoir on someone else. See if you can get, I interviewed someone, I had to interview a lot of people when I had my corporate position. And I would always go with my pen, my pad, and my tape recorder. And then at the end, I would give them the tape. I would let them review what you have written so they don't feel uncomfortable. There's nothing worse than seeing something in print that you have innocently taken out of context. You have every right as the author to retain your notes. But I found sometimes when I was on tight deadline, and depending upon the conditions under which I was giving the interview, sometimes I had to go on a construction site. It all depended. So many times I would take a tape recorder. Sometimes people feel uncomfortable they see a tape recorder. Let them know you're more than willing to give them the tape. As long as you have your notes, anything that you feel that will make them feel comfortable. The more comfortable you make them feel with you, the more comfortable they will be in giving you their time. And they are giving you their time. And you're not paying them for this. Although, obviously, when you do get the book published, if it's someone else, you're going to give them an autographed copy, gratis. But the more you can do to help them, the more they will do to help you. Any other questions?
Feel free if you'd like to unmute and ask, you absolutely can. Okay, well, I don't think we have any other questions. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Thank you so much to everybody for being here, and thank you so much to Joan for joining us today to teach this webinar.
Thank you. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. And if you think of a question after, or if you need help, you have my email. Do feel free to get in touch with me.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, everybody.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, Devin.
Bye.